Kia ora, good evening. An Invercargill man was attacked in his home in the early hours of this morning. The serious assault took place in the Richmond area around 4:30 a.m. The man in his 40s awoke to find several people inside his flat and was then assaulted. The man managed to escape and neighbours came to his aid. The victim received treatment at Southland Hospital for his injuries, which included moderate bruising and cuts, but has since been discharged. Police say it's not known if weapons were used or if the attack was random or targeted. The man doesn't appear to have known the attackers, and it hasn't been confirmed if anything was taken. The build-up to the general election is well underway, with Labour's Ruth Dyson in the city today, Clayton Cosgrove later this week, and leader David Cunliffe touching down next Thursday ahead of Prime Minister John Key, who arrives the following day. Ms Dyson was visiting various organisations in the city today. She says her party is targeting Invercargill, a seat she believes is highly winnable for Labour. Hunter Andrews asked the opposition spokesperson for conservation about the Invercargill seat and proposed tourism developments in Fiordland and Stewart Island.
We think that the National Party has neglected Invercargill. Leslie Soper, our candidate, has been a really strong voice. She's engaged with the community. She knows which issues are important to people here, and she makes sure that those of us who are in Parliament now understand that as well. That's really important for a local representative. So we've got Invercargill well and truly in our sights as a winnable seat this election.
Let's talk about regional policies. Firstly, you have an enormous area of responsibility. Let's talk about Department of Conservation and in particular monorail into Fiordland, which is a big issue down here. What you're dead against?
Not keen at all on that sort of intrusion into the most pristine areas of our country. Of course there are areas that can be better used for tourism, but what you have to look at is what are the most precious parts of our country. We should protect them. Because nowhere else in the world has areas like we have. We should be proud of them. We should make sure they're accessible, but not through intrusive methods. So if people want to go on a train, they can go on the Transalpine. They can go from Christchurch to Kaikoura. They're both beautiful routes, but they haven't gone through the sorts of areas that we're talking about in Fiordland. So you've got a huge asset here. Let's protect it.
How far down the track would you, if you were Conservation Minister, have let this scheme go?
I think it's really unfortunate that the Minister of Conservation wasn't up front with the developers of either the tunnel proposal or the monorail proposal. He's already turned down the tunnel, but after huge investment from the proponents of the tunnel and also huge anxiety amongst the local people, particularly in Glenorchy. So I think that it's much better if the Minister is up front, and that's what I would be, with the developers and with the local community, and just say this is not a possibility. Don't even come to the table with it.
The pressure is going to come on Fiordland though, and Stewart Island in particular, with increasing visitor numbers. I mean, our goal is to keep increasing the amount of people coming to enjoy New Zealand. What sort of pressure is there on the infrastructure in those areas, and what would Labour do to alleviate that?
You're right, there's substantial pressure, and what we have to look at is why people come. People come because of the beauty of those areas. I mean, you wouldn't go to Stewart Island to do anything but enjoy the natural environments. It's like nowhere else in the world, and we should really make sure that the infrastructure on the island can support the increased tourism that we've got. I know that we've had a recent levy put in place through Parliament. I supported that. I think it's a sensible way of being able to attract more local funds, but we also have to have both central government and local government working in partnership, because the rating base just isn't big enough.
And I mean, that's relevant with Fiordland too, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. We've got areas of natural beauty. You're not likely to have large populations, so it's not rocket science. We need a genuine partnership between central and local governments to make sure that the attractions that we all want to protect and promote are properly resourced and supported.
The pre-budget funding announcements have begun, with the New Zealand Defence Force set to benefit to the tune of just over $100 million.
Defence Minister Jonathan Coleman says the government is committed to strengthening the New Zealand Defence Force and will be investing $100.9 million of operating funding in 2014-15. Mr Coleman says the government greatly values the ongoing work and commitment of NZDF personnel. He says the NZDF's work is vital to wider New Zealand interests and the tempo of activity is high. Recent examples include the Air Force delivering aid to the Solomon Islands and supporting the international effort to search for the missing Malaysian Airlines plane MH370. The government's investment of $100.9 million in 2014-15 is the first stage of an allocation of $535.5 million operating funding for the NZDF over the next 4 years.
This week is National Immunisation Week, and one of the key messages being promoted is on time, every time, which supports all children having their current immunisation event at the time it's due. High coverage is important, but getting coverage on time is key, so vulnerable babies are protected as early as possible. The current immunisation schedules include shots at 6 weeks, 3 months and 5 months.
We're currently achieving 94%, which we're really pleased about, but we're striving for that 95%. We're also being monitored and watching our coverage for the children at 2 years. So that's those first 3 events plus the 15-month one. And again, we're achieving 94% for that and striving for 95%.
It's a tremendous uptake. There is still a group out there that are anti-immunisation. How are you targeting to them?
Right, yes, we do have a small component of our population. It's about 3 or 4% of our children whose parents choose not to vaccinate, but bearing in mind immunisation is a consented event, and so we are respectful of those people that choose not to.
If they choose not to and they attend a creche or a kindergarten or eventually school, are they putting other children at risk in those situations?
Well, in fact, they're probably putting themselves at risk. So what happens is preschools and kindergartens and schools hold immunisation registers where they record the vaccination status. If there was a disease outbreak, then the medical officers of health have the ability to actually instruct those children to not attend that institution while the outbreak is on, because of the risk that they are actually posed themselves, and potentially the risk that if they then got sick and passed it on to other children.
The immunisation schedule covers off the mumps and rubella and measles, more traditional types of disease or infections. The rotavirus is a new one that's come up though.
Yes, the rotavirus vaccine is a new vaccine that's going to be available on the immunisation schedule from the 1st of July, and that's so rotavirus is a diarrhoea bug that babies have, impacts on the little babies, so that vaccine will come on board at the 6-week, 3-month and 5-month event. It's got quite tight time frames about when you must have the vaccine, so again we're encouraging our on time every time. So just a reminder that vaccine will be available from the 1st of July.
Also, one that's come on board in more recent years is the HPV virus for year 8 or 9 girls. Mm-hmm. But also, is there anything else out there for adults that people perhaps should be aware of that they could be taking but aren't?
There are a number of vaccines that that are available for adults who are in vulnerable health conditions. The medical specialists are well versed in those vaccine availability and will be able to advise people on them.
After the break, e-therapy for youth and the business of upcycling bicycles. Welcome back. An online game-style tool has been launched aimed at giving young people the skills to deal with feeling down, depressed or stressed. The self-help tool is not designed to replace advice from medical professionals, but instead helps young people identify depression and offers information on where to get help. The e-therapy program has a mood quiz and uses cognitive behavioural therapy techniques in a youth-friendly game format to teach young people how to cope with negativity and think in a more balanced way. Sparks users can access the tool independently and anonymously from sparks.org.nz with clinical backup from Youthline and Lifeline, as well as a free phone line. The clients at Invercargill's Idea Services are operating a bicycle recycling scheme where donated bikes get restored and reinvigorated before being redonated to schools and church groups. Hunter Andrews with more.
The scheme was the idea of the clients who were looking to acquire mechanical skills, be independent and at the same time contribute back to their community.
It's nurturing their independence to be able to do stuff for themselves. So for them to be able to give back to the community, the community donate bikes to us, and we're always looking for more bikes. And then we take the bikes and we work on them, strip them down, utilise what we can from the bikes, and then recreate another bike that can be used again. And that in turn is donated back to the community.
And they seem a great bunch of blokes hanging out together working with bikes.
Yeah, well, I really enjoy coming in here because it's always a really good vibe, and they just come in here, they know what they're going to do, and they do it all independently by themselves.
On board with the scheme is bike Dr Tony Tressida, who provides the all-important technical know-how behind the operation. He says the recycling cycle work is highly rewarding and that there is always something that can be done with that old bike collecting dust in the garage.
You get some rough ones that the guys just strip down, and we get little bits and pieces of parts to build up another bike. Yeah.
And so the mission is to get everyone in Invercargill on a bike?
Pretty much. Well, especially all the kids and stuff at schools and that anyway, yeah.
The guys are always enthusiastic to get started when a fresh load of bikes arrives at the workshop and relish the chance to test their mechanical skills.
Matthew, what are you up to today?
I'm doing my bike project. I normally fix them and repair them and sell them.
So you do all the mechanicals on them, from stripping them to painting them?
Yeah, I do, yes.
And how long have you been doing this?
I started here last year, so it'll be a year.
Great skills to have.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, Rex, tell us what happens when a bike arrives here.
We unload them and bring them in here, and the bad ones go out the back.
There are bad ones that can't be worked on?
No. He picks them up in the trailer. Yeah.
And so some bikes will be broken down and used as parts?
Yeah. Yep.
What's your favourite job? Are you involved in all the processes?
Yeah. Put wires on and do all that.
And are you a bike fan yourself?
No.
You're not a bike fan?
No.
You just like working on them?
Yeah.
If you have a used bike or two in the garage, then perhaps you should consider contacting the cycle recyclers.
Bring it here if you'd like to donate to Idea Services in Invercargill. We'd really appreciate it. And our guys will work on them and get them up and running again, and you never know, you might see your bike that has been done up getting around in the community.
Hunter Andrews, South Today News.
Veterans Affairs Minister Michael Woodnerhouse has announced that there are to be 100 special passes from the Gallipoli ballot allocated to children of Gallipoli veterans and youth representatives. The special passes were held back from the first round of the ballot to allow the recipients to attend Anzac Day commemorations in Gallipoli in 2015. 35 double passes will be allocated to children of Gallipoli veterans, with another 30 single passes going to youth representatives and their chaperones. Mr Woodhouse says the Gallipoli campaign was a defining moment in New Zealand's history, and next year's centenary commemorations will be particularly poignant. Over 9,800 applications entered the ballot, with 950 double passes available. Of those awarded in the first round, 26% were won by direct descendants of those who fought at Gallipoli, 16% by veterans and 58% by the general public. Next up on sport, we catch up with Steel Vice-Captain Wendy Frew on the team's latest loss. From the news team though, it's good night.